From a distant galaxy, they have come to Earth. Dolph Lundgren as He-Man, Frank Langella as Skeletor. Only they have the powers to be masters of the universe. Live the adventure.
Hey guys, thank you for watching. My name is Josh.
And I'm Sean.
And this is episode 21 of The Variant Verdict. Tonight's movie,
Masters of the Universe.
Correct.
Now, with everything going on that we keep hearing about this new He-Man and the Masters of the Universe thing that's being directed by Kevin Smith, I brought up this 1980, what was it, 7 movie?
1987.
Yeah, 1987 movie with starring Dolph Lundgren, and you didn't even know it existed.
No, I mean, I've known a little bit about it. This is just like a movie that when it was coming out, apparently, like, you were coming off the heels of, like, Return of the Jedi, and there's a lot of other movies that, like, definitely, like, were right when I was old enough to watch them, they got to my attention. This one just, like, went right over the radar.
Yeah, no, and I mean...
Under the radar.
It's understandable, because I wouldn't really call this movie, like, a hidden gem, per se, or it's snuck by. No, this movie... It's a rough one, but when you're a kid, you know, you're thinking like, oh, this is awesome. But the older you get, you're like, wait a minute, something is amiss.
Well, let me just start and preface this by saying, like, of all the fandoms out there, I'm not a He-Man fan that much.
Mm-hmm.
Fight me, internet. I'm just not a big fan. I don't have anything against it. I think some of the toys are really cool. When I was a kid, I had a few that I messed around with. I remember having an Orko.
Yeah.
Who just kind of reminds me of like a black mage from Final Fantasy. So I like the design by nature. So I guess like I'm not its target audience.
Yeah.
You know, where I could see maybe some people getting more of an appreciation out of this.
You were the target audience. They just didn't hit the target with you.
Exactly.
So,
it just kind of it passed me by.
No, and for me, I had older brothers that were into it too. So it was like it trickled down to me. Like I wouldn't even probably even caught on who they were without them. So I was more into something like, you know, Transformers, like Thundercats. So it was all the same family. No, but this movie, when I saw it, I remember thinking, like, whoa, because in this movie, as rough as it is, because you just recently saw it, like, really sat down and watched it for the first time, like, what would you say your initial impression of this is?
I feel like, as like I mentioned before, Return of the Jedi being so soon to the release of this movie, that they were clearly taking some of the more grand... especially the villain, I should say, because the villain that played by Frank Langella, I think.
Yeah, no, Skeletor.
He kind of has a Darth Vader vibe going on to him. The way he carries himself, he's very dramatic.
And also the soldiers.
I could think they were trying to get like a voice that like hit as deeply as like James Earl Jones, but it didn't quite hit the mark there.
Well, yeah, if you watch the cartoon,
that's a tough bar to
Skeletor does not have that kind of voice. He's very like, meow, like, you know, so you're kind of like, okay. But then when you got like Frank Langella doing this, in my opinion, this is the best Skeletor out of all He-Man anything. Like, it's because he's serious.
You know, that's
and you can tell he took it seriously.
One positive aspect of this movie that I got out of it was that, just like when we mentioned watching the Doom 1994 unreleased movie, that Doom was probably the most the guy put in the most effort into making that, like, his lines work.
Yeah,
that's definitely who, like, Frank Langella has Skeletor doing the same thing. He fulfilled the role of like, I'm gonna come into Raul Julia in Street Fighter is a good example. Like those movies suck, but no one's going to take away Raul Julia's performance from Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Or even that guy from Fantastic Four. Like, they went in there and they fucking hammered it.
You could tell they were the ones who were like, I will make this work. And honestly, like I said, that's my favorite Skeletor.
Those are the best actors, though. The ones that can chew on, like, the worst fucking script and still, like, you know, make lemonade from lemons.
Yeah, and then when you go back to, like, Star Wars, it is such, like, the Stormtrooper ripoff. Like, you'd swear it's the same guys who shot the Death Star that were, like, are the exact soldiers.
You could tell they wanted to, like, revive that kind of feeling that you get when you watch Return of the Jedi and, like, the Emperor comes landing into the Death Star and, like, you have, like, the troops all like surrounding him, and he walks down an aisle. It's big and grand looking. Apparently, this movie actually had sets that were so big it took like 2 sound stages put together.
Yeah, like Skeletor.
It's clearly like heavily influenced on like the Death Star shots and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, no, you could tell they wanted that grand.
And
scale.
it was almost like the way they would shoot Skeletor. He walked like Vader through his little group of people, and like he was like.
He walked
similar.
like a badass. But
can we talk about another similarity? How about Superman being blatantly ripped off by the intro and music of this film?
The theme of this movie is straight up like it's almost like the whole.
They're not trying. There's like a note missing, and that's it. And
yeah,
like, this is our movie. That's Superman. We're not copying.
No, straight up. Like there are certain things where I've heard jokes where like Indiana Jones and Superman, you can't say their themes back to back because they're so similar. You want an extra added challenge? Throw the Masters of the Universe theme into this, and it's like it's so blatantly ripped off.
Interesting that like the score is not terrible. That's the guy Bill Conti who did Rocky. Yeah, he did the right stuff. He did a few like a Karate Kid, some huge movies of the time. So he's not a stranger. I guess like but like with movies like this, you could see like Mattel's a fucking massive company. Yeah, they're gonna make a big push to do something with the movie, and the movie actually went over budget. It was supposed to be like 17 million. I think it went to 22 million by the end. Got inflated, and you could see where like. Clearly, like there's some sort of passion there to make this like a functional He-Man movie, but one of its biggest faults to me, and it kind of fun, like what Sonic did was Sonic put it all in the real world, and it shied away from like those fantastic fantasy like settings you get from Sonic. They didn't really want to bother with that setting. There's a couple map paintings of like
like a barren wasteland
or the Grayskull's castle, stuff like that.
In this it's
that's it. Just a couple map paintings.
The movie takes place in New Jersey.
Yeah, and then you have a young
80s.
Courteney Cox in there.
Her first movie. Actually,
Dolph Lundgren looking like fucking 80s Lundgren, trying his best to do what he can with what he's working with. He apparently considers this like a low point in his career. That doesn't surprise me.
And one thing I always thought was funny and didn't even click in with me until watching it after all this time was that, so the sorceress, the actress who plays the sorceress, are you
talking about the one with the ice?
Yeah, with exactly.
Okay.
She plays Courteney Cox's mother in Friends.
Oh wow!
So it's like weird how seeing that like Courteney Cox's first movie had her in it. I don't think they interacted at all, but then like go years later and they're in the same role together in a TV show, like they're in the same show together again.
There's still I don't know if it's a product of its time. I think there is a place for me to appreciate movies that they're so bad it's good, or clearly because clearly there was some effort put into this movie that actually is terrible, but it's actually because that's what makes it good. And I said Street Fighter is pretty much along that realm. Like it's only kind of good because whoever made it like tried the fuck out of making that movie. Yeah, and that's what we got. Good or bad, but I think that's what kind of makes it charming and good because of how bad it is. This movie doesn't do that for me.
No, because really, ultimately,
it's just not that good.
Yeah, ultimately, there's a key that can hop you through dimensions, and it's done by this little guy who replaces Orca and what was his name?
The troll?
Yeah, the little troll dude.
I can't remember. He was made specifically for the movie,
Gwildor, right? Or something like that, and he created this key that he can jump through, which is how they get to New Jersey. And then, so their whole time, they're trying to recover the key so they can get back to Eternia and save, save the world. But now, when it comes to this, seeing things like He-Man in an 80s setting is exactly like going back to what you said about like Sonic being in our time. Like this movie never needed to be in our time. Like this should have just
its target demographic. It should have been kids using their imagination playing with the toys anyways. Like what were they thinking that like it would have been interesting to throw the characters in New fucking Jersey of all places.
Like you see two kids like He-Man's in the record store. Here comes Skeletor. Like no, that's not what we were thinking.
So the movie, even for nostalgia's sake, just doesn't land super heavy with me. It's not one of my favorites or anything like that.
And one person who I remember when I was a kid, I always thought it was like Kirstie Alley, but it's not. The girl who plays Evil Lynn, like that was another character or actress who you could tell was like really throwing themselves into it, like Frank Langella, and she worked for me. I didn't mind her as Evil Lynn at all. So, and then they did the whole thing where like You had a lot.
I liked what Mattel was doing, where they tried to write those new villains into the movie,
except for Beastman. Yeah,
everyone
else was
I
new.
could appreciate the designs, like some of the aesthetic of the movie, as far as like costumes and stuff. They go for it.
Yeah,
it doesn't always work, but when it lands, it's not half bad for 1987.
Yeah.
It's not half bad, but ultimately, it doesn't have enough bad going for it to like balance it out to being like, oh, I can rewatch it. That's so bad. It's hilarious.
It is to me though. Like to me, it is one of those. It's so bad.
It's got
good,
like really
but...
whitewashed green screen effects that drive me nuts. Those drive me nuts. They've dated so bad.
No, they have, and the whole movie's dated really bad. But it is one of those like guilty pleasures of mine. But I know it's a shit movie. Like even the very end when dealing with Skeletor and. They're in his lair and he becomes a god, and then they're fighting, and it's like the whole fight is in darkness and all you can see is like a spotlight on them, and it's corny as hell, but there's a kid inside of me that's just like I
can appreciate it. There's movies like that. The reason I thought of Street Fighter is because of the same reason I like this movie. It's got like that one character that gives it their all, and it makes it worth watching the whole runtime for the most part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's it. Like, that's all I really have to say about it. I know Kevin Smith's got Jason Mewes, Mark Hamill, Kevin Conroy, the voice of
Cersei as Evil Lynn.
Bruce Wayne from animated.
Yeah, and Mark
Batman.
Hamill's in it too, isn't he? He's Skeletor.
Mark Hamill.
And the star voice cast, and like I said, with Lena Headey being Evil Lynn, it's like you have Cersei as Evil Lynn. That's fucking perfect. Like, I can't think of anybody else. And then,
I think it'll be. I think there's a chance for me to like Masters of the Universe somewhere in there.
And I mean, this is Kevin Smith.
Give it the right person.
This.
Kevin Smith with this cast.
And how much he loves this shit. Just like say we do. We look on it, and I hope he takes like a darker, serious tone. Like, I want the Skeletor from like this movie instead of the original cartoon. Because like I said, the original is like meh, like.
Kevin Smith seems like a fanboy. He'll pick the right things to adapt and move forward with, and then he'll throw his own spin on it. I imagine
a dark, serious Skeletor is much better than every other option.
There's a chance for me to like this franchise. One of you guys got to prove me wrong.
Yeah,
but that's it. That'll wrap up our episode tonight. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below. Let us know if there's anything you want us to let's play or review for a verdict.
Thank you for watching, and have a good night.
Have a good night.